Hey rockers, back again for yet another cool rock and roll tale. Today we're going to speak about Motorhead, Mercyful Fate, and Exciter. Yep, they played in Chicago in 1984 on December the 1st. And it was at the Aragon Ballroom. And man, one of many times I've gotten to witness the magic of the band Motorhead, of course, featuring the late Lemmy on the vocals and the bass. Man, what a great show. The only problem is, man, I can't remember who in the heck I drove up there with. It was either my friend James Laritzen or Kevin Brashear, I think. Maybe one of those guys will see this video and leave a little comment below. By the way, before I get started, please, guys, give this channel a like if you would. Like the video, I should say. Subscribe to the channel. That's more like it. Please subscribe. And leave a comment if you feel inclined. Okay, so we lived in Peoria, Illinois. And we decided to drive the 2.5 hours north up to Chicago to the Aragon Ballroom to see Motorhead, Mercyful Fate, and Exciter. Exciter, they were a Canadian three-piece band, super metal, like speed metal, and they were one of the bands that, was on this bill. They opened the show. Of course, a little bit of information about Exciter. They made their 1983 debut with an album called Heavy Metal Maniac. And had a really cool album cover, by the way. These guys were on Shrapnel Records, Megaforce Records. They appeared on the US Metal Volume 2 compilation, which was really cool. And I remember all those cool comps like Metal Massacre and whatnot. Anyway, Exciter were a full-on thrash band, speed metal, total headbanging music, formed in 1978 after the Judas Priest song Exciter. Yep. That's a little bit of trivia for you. The band was made up of the three guys, of course, the vocalist and drummer Dan Beeler, and then John Rice on guitar. Actually, John Ritchie, R-I-C-C-I. Ricci? Yeah, Christine Ricci. Is it John Ricci or Ritchie? I think it's Ricci. Also, Alan James Johnson on the bass. These guys were no joke, man. I can see why they were picked to be an opening act. They didn't have a really big name, but they'd been out for about a year as far as the public knew, and they were kicking ass, man. Yeah, Exciter put on a great show. I didn't really know any of their songs, so any of you Exciter fans, please give me a break, but maybe in the comment section, leave me some information about Exciter. What are your favorite songs by Exciter? They were really kick-ass, though, man, and they did warm up the show real well. There's a lot of great vocal work going on, from, flat, normal kind of tone to the highs, kind of like Judas Priest. But yeah, Exciter was kick-ass, but again, I wasn't a big fan at the point. That was my first exposure to them, so I was more excited about seeing Mercyful Fate with King Diamond and Motorhead most of all. So I will tell you, man, when Mercyful Fate hit the stage, and there's recordings out there of some of this stuff, they were amazing. It was made up of King Diamond on the vocals, the great Hank Sherman on guitar, Michael Donner on guitar, Timmy Hansen on the bass, Kim Roos on the drums. These guys, Mercyful Fate, are a Danish band, and they had just released, not too long before, maybe a year earlier, the Don't Break the Oath album, and they did a lot of stuff from that. Those of you that know that King Diamond and Mercyful Fate were a very dark band. Yeah, using a lot of imagery that was, has a lot of demons and devils and skulls and kind of dark stuff, man, and they have a hardcore following. One time I actually saw King Diamond play at a church, a small church in Denver, Colorado. It had to have been about 87, 88. Does anybody remember that show from Denver? Could it have been Boulder? I think it was Denver. Anyway, Mercyful Fate hits the stage. It's their second album that they're on tour for, Don't Break the Oath. They start out with Doomed by the Living Dead, and then they morph right into Curse of the Pharaohs. King Diamond's voice is amazing, one of a kind, and his stage presence was very trippy, man. He had this big upside down cross he was holding with that was made out of bones. It appears to be human bones. Don't know. I'm only reporting the facts. Then, of course, they did Come to the Sabbath, followed by Black Masses, which was wicked. That was wicked. I did find that on YouTube. That was a very cool performance of the song Black Masses. Here's the catch. Once they did the next song, it's called Into the Coven. that's when all hell broke loose. Now, speaking about Mercyful Fate, that's kind of a funny thing to say. When all hell breaks loose at a King Diamond show, should you be surprised? Maybe not. Well, apparently some dummy in the audience threw something at King Diamond and it hit him. So when that song was over, he went off into a tirade, and I heard the recording yesterday and I wrote this down. This is what King Diamond had to say as I consult my notes. It said, he said, "Who the F threw that at me? I dare you to come up here. I'll beat your effing brain out. I'll effing smash your head. Come on, coward. Who did that? Coward." On and on and on. Yeah, he just kept threatening this guy. He was super livid. And I pity the fool that got out there and messed with King Diamond, especially in the middle of a good adrenaline high like a rock and roll concert, right? People that throw stuff at people on stage suck. Anyway, unless they deserve it. Now, I saw a band open for Iggy and the Stooges, and they just got pelted just because people wanted Iggy on. The band was good, so that wasn't cool, you know. Anyway, yeah, King Diamond was not happy, but the set was great. I remember his voice was at top peak, just really high highs. That guy could really take his voice and soar. I wouldn't even try to attempt to do what he does on vocals. He's up there in the Rob Halford sort of league of really operatic vocals. Of course, everyone was really into Mercyful Fate, but the crowd was definitely there for Motorhead. They'd been touring the States for 4 years. They had built up a huge underground audience. They weren't like household names yet, like Lemmy and Motorhead, but they were one of the best and still are one of the best rock and roll bands ever. Some people call them metal. Some people say they're more punk. I say Motorhead is rock and roll with elements of both, but mostly hard rock, rock and roll. When Motorhead hit the stage, the crowd went completely nuts. To say that Motorhead doesn't have a huge following in Chicago would be a lie. It's an understatement to say Motorhead had a huge following in Chicago. They were massive Motorhead bangers there. I had never heard such a loud crowd. And Lemmy was super, super engaging during this whole show. There wasn't any of the talking once in a while thing. He talked after every single show. He showed so much gratitude to the crowd and told Chicago how much he loved us. It was one of the best shows ever by Motorhead that I saw, because they did mostly songs that I could sing along to and knew all the words to. They played for a little over an hour. They had an album out at the time that they were touring under called No Remorse. Yeah, it come out in a regular cardboard sleeve, but also you could buy the album in a leather edition, which is what I had until I sold it like an idiot on eBay. But it was a leather edition with silver printing on the cover. It was really badass, man. You could pull out these two inserts that were covered with photos. Great photo collage featuring Lemmy and the boys. Anyway, this was the first tour featuring the new lineup of Motorhead, by the way. Lemmy Kilmister on vocals and bass. Phil Wizzo Campbell. Yep, Phil Campbell on guitar. Of course, Michael Wurzo Burston on guitar. They just called him Wurzo. And Pete Gill on the drums. These guys were badass. Bad to the bone. Motorhead well represented. I'm not gonna lie, if you're a Motorhead nut like me, my favorite version of Motorhead was Filthy Animal Taylor on drums, and of course Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar. But that does not take away how good Motorhead was on the No Remorse tour. They were just as good as the other guys. They were. It's just it was different players. I can't take it away from them, though. And at one point, Lemmy even said, this at the end of the show, "This is the best band I've ever played with." So I do have some information about this show, of course, with Motorhead. Later, by the way, they did record a song called No Remorse, which came out on the 2002 Hammered album. I've got the original set list from the show they played in Chicago and little notes. Iron Fist was the first song they came out with, massively fast and pounding. Iron Fist is one of the coolest Motorhead records ever made. It's the closest to their punk rock album that I can think of. I love Iron Fist. I'd say Iron Fist and Ace of Spades, my two favorite Motorhead albums, followed by Live at Hammersmith. They came out with Iron Fist going right into Stay Clean. And then, of course, after Stay Clean, they did Heart of Stone. Love that song from Iron Fist. And Lemmy came out and he said, "Sweet home Chicago. We love Chicago." He says, "There's no way we'll never not play Chicago." And then they dedicated a song to Pete Gill, the drummer of the band, which was awesome. Then they, after they did the Hammer, they went into a nice slow one called Metropolis, which is a really beautiful old school Motorhead from the classic lineup of Fast Eddie, Filthy Phil Taylor, and Lemmy. Then they did Shoot You in the Back, which was awesome. And he, at this point, Lemmy says to the crowd, "Can I see a pair of," and it starts with the letter T and it ends with the letter S. "May I see a pair of," when a girl lifts up her shirt, or a guy. So Lemmy, of course, being the womanizing guy he always was not real happy because no one was showing him their you-know-whats. But eventually they did, because he said, "We won't play any more songs until we see them," kind of thing. And then he got what he wanted. That was kind of funny, man. Pardon me as I read my notes. Jailbait was the next song, and then Lemmy, of course, introduced Phil Campbell and Wurzel, and Jailbait being a great song from the Ace of Spades album. Then they did Killed by Death, which was introduced as their latest single. Yeah, man, I saw that video earlier on YouTube. Great video, man. Killed by Death video. After that, they did, of course, Ace of Spades. And when they were done playing Ace of Spades, it was just, the crowd was crazy. And everybody was singing during that song. People were whistling, cheering, screaming, holding up lighters. It was just complete insanity. And it was one of the loudest concerts as far as an audience that I can remember. And you can tell the band was blown away by it, man. They did Ace of Spades, one of their more popular songs. Then, of course, they just decided to do a new one called Steal Your Face. And I don't know if that was actually new, but he said it was about the person that takes advantage of somebody in a intimate way without their permission. That's what this song was about, Steal Your Face. And then, of course, they did Nothing Up My Sleeve. Into one of my favorites ever, We Are the Road Crew. What a great song by Motorhead. And before that song, he brought out a guy named Johnny. Lemmy brought out, he goes, "Let's get Johnny out here." And it was obviously the same guy that you can hear on No Sleep Till Hammersmith. And he goes, the loudest roadie's voice ever, or something like that. And he goes, "Roar!" And it just screams really loud. And they're like, yeah. And then they go right into We Are the Road Crew rules. The lyrics to that song are so good, man. If you're an old school Motorhead fan, let me know in the comments, man. Also, Bite the Bullet was next, but let me introduce the song as Bite the Snatch. That was memorable. Of course, they did The Chase is Better Than the Catch next from the Ace of Spades record. Another super classic tune from Motorhead. And then, of course, they were getting ready to go into the song No Class. And Lemmy said, "This song is especially for those of you who wouldn't show us your," well, you know what, when you lift up your shirt. So that was funny as hell, because Lemmy is always known for having that sense of humor. Then they broke into the classics from their first album, self-titled song, Motorhead. These guys look so badass on stage. Everybody in the band up front, Lemmy, Wizzo, these guys all had their bullet belt buckles on. Lemmy had his cut-off sleeve denim jacket. Just the ultimate classic period of Motorhead there in the 80s, from 80 to like 90. It was just such a special period. Of course, I remained a fan way after that. They did an encore, guys. They did 2 songs because the crowd was insane. Again, I don't remember hearing any crowds this crazy, and Lemmy talked between every song. They came out and did Bomber, and that song is another old school classic from the classic lineup of, well, you know who. And the last song of the night was Overkill. And Lemmy said, "I think this is the best effing band I've ever had in my life. Thank you, Chicago. Goodbye." This one's called Overkill. And then they, of course, played a little over an hour And man, the high we had, the adrenaline buzz, and well, probably the beer and the smoke probably helped too. But it was crazy seeing Motorhead that time. I believe that was my second or third time seeing Motorhead. I've got another story about seeing Motorhead in 1980 on their very first tour, opening for Ozzy Osbourne and Blizzard of Oz with Randy Rhoads. If you go to the video section of this channel and scroll all the way down, you'll see all the other videos I have made, and you might be surprised at some of the stuff you find. Please, guys, subscribe to the channel, give it a like if you like the video, share it somewhere out there in social media land, and help me build my channel. Thank you very much. I will be back soon. I've got a couple different videos planned, and I'm going to be announcing when I'm going live next, and it's going to be very, very soon. I hope you guys will join me. I love to go live. We talk all things rock, punk, and metal, and it's always a good time to meet you guys and find out where you're from. Thanks again for being here at Bloody F Mess Official. Long live this guy right here, Lemmy, and that band right there, Motorhead. Cheers, Motorhead bangers.